Do you remember playing video games as a kid? Like a really intense multiplayer game?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And there was always that one friend, right? The kid who, the second he realized he was totally outmatched and about to lose, would just violently unplug the console from the wall.
Oh, man, the classic rage quit, just totally ruining it for everyone.
Exactly. Just yank the cord. It's that completely toxic mentality of, if I can't win, nobody gets to play.
Right. The ultimate sore loser move.
Yeah. Anyway, the mics are hot. Welcome back, Sip&Talkers across all time zones. I'm Joe.
And I'm Sunny. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you're tuning in from today.
So we were just talking about that childish, unplug the console mentality. And as wild as it is to see a kid do it, it is genuinely terrifying when you scale that exact same psychological phenomenon up to a macro level.
It really is, like a whole societal level. And today, we are doing a deep dive into some really fascinating source material to figure out exactly how this happens.
Yeah, we got a wild stack of sources today.
We really do. We're looking at economic data from early 2026, translations of Chinese state media, and some incredible sociological papers on modern labor movements.
And just to lay the ground rules right up front for everyone listening,
yeah,
we're not taking political sides here.
Right, exactly.
We certainly aren't endorsing the views of any specific government or anything. We are entirely impartial. Our mission is simply to unpack the ideas contained in these sources to understand the objective sociological machinery at play.
Purely looking at the societal facts. And we're going to be looking at this undercurrent of nihilism, specifically the movement famously known as lying flat or tangping,
right,
and observing how it's mutating into this really dark demand for an equality of misery.
That phrase alone is heavy. Equality of misery.
It is. It's this idea of, well, my life is a grind, so I want to drag everyone else down into the swamp with me.
Wow. Okay.
But to frame just how absurd the psychological projection can get, let's look at one of the translations from our source stack. It's a piece of North Korean state propaganda from a while back.
Oh, I read this part. It's unbelievable.
Right. So they were earnestly, with entirely straight faces on national television, telling their citizens that South Koreans are currently living in a dystopian hellscape.
Like a literal wasteland.
Exactly. The broadcast claimed that South Koreans are drinking rainwater from puddles, gnawing on tree bark just to survive the capitalist meat grinder.
Drinking rainwater.
Yeah, and that it is North Korea's glorious moral duty to go save them from this misery.
Okay, wait, I'm picturing this.
Yeah.
You have a regime that literally cannot keep the lights on in its own capital city. Like, we've all seen the satellite photos where the whole country goes dark at night.
Yep, the black hole on the map.
Right, and they're looking at a country that exports K-pop globally, manufactures some of the most advanced semiconductors on the planet, has a thriving democratic system.
And they're saying, wow, those poor guys, we really need to rescue them.
It's almost too dark to be funny. It's just wild.
It is the absolute definition of a savior delusion. But here's the thing. It's not just random crazy talk. It serves a real structural purpose.
Right, because it's driven by a severe information vacuum.
Exactly. And that illustrates our whole mission for today's deep dive. We are going to peel back the sugarcoating of these authoritarian savior delusions.
I am so ready for this. I just set down my dark roast coffee, and it is the perfect pairing for a heavy reality check. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. So let's start with the system that people are so desperately trying to escape. Because the rage quit doesn't happen unless the game feels completely rigged.
Makes sense.
Going through the sociological papers, there is this fascinating pivot point. In April 2024, China's Ministry of State Security,
which is, just for context, their top intelligence and secret police agency.
Right, the literal secret police. They declared an all-out, highly publicized war on the lying flat mindset.
Let me just stop you there, because my brain is just flashing red warning lights. From a global tech and business perspective, that is insane.
It's totally unheard of.
You have a national security apparatus stepping in to handle what is essentially a human resources and burnout problem. I mean, if the CIA suddenly issued a memo telling Silicon Valley engineers to stop quiet quitting, we would lose our minds.
Oh, people would riot. It would be chaos.
It tells you everything you need to know about how threatened the system is by people just, resting.
It exposes a massive vulnerability. The state fundamentally relies on a hyper-productive youth to keep its economic engine running, but it gets even more surreal.
Oh, man.
To lecture these exhausted young people about the virtues of struggling and working hard, the state didn't just put a politician on TV, they deployed an AI-generated virtual police officer.
Hold on, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around this. They created a digital avatar.
A literal string of code on a screen, lecturing the public.
That is dystopian comedy at its finest.
Yeah.
You have a machine that doesn't require sleep, doesn't pay rent, doesn't have a nervous system to experience anxiety.
Yelling at biological humans to just push through the pain.
It's like the system couldn't even find a real flesh-and-blood human with enough energy left to deliver the propaganda convincingly.
The irony is incredibly rich, but the official narrative they pushed alongside this AI cop was very calculated. They claimed that lying flat isn't a natural reaction to extreme exhaustion.
Right, because admitting that would be a systemic failure.
Exactly. So instead, they pushed a conspiracy theory that this mindset is funded by foreign forces.
Of course they do.
Yeah, the accusation was that foreign entities are brainwashing the youth, mass-producing content to convince them that hard work equals exploitation.
Okay, I read the translated netizen reactions to this in the sources, and the pushback was just brilliant.
It really was.
The internet basically said, hold up, if you want to find the original foreign force, the guy who famously didn't really hold down a regular job, relied on his rich friend for funding,
and wrote entire books encouraging workers to rebel against capitalist exploitation.
look no further than Karl Marx.
Oh, it's perfect. If Marx time traveled to today and saw young people being labeled counter-revolutionaries and investigated by state security just because they didn't want to work a 996 schedule, I mean,
He'd probably think his own script got flipped.
he totally would. And just for context for the listeners, 996 means working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week.
Which is brutal. It's just unsustainable. So we've established the state is terrified. But why are the youth risking the wrath of the secret police just to lie flat? Like, what is the actual mechanism driving them to just drop out of the economy?
It comes down to a phenomenon called involution. It's a term that is everywhere in these sociological papers.
Involution, right?
Involution basically means you are trapped in a cycle of putting in near infinite effort, but your returns are continuously decreasing.
So it's hyper-competition that produces zero innovation.
Exactly. Just exhausted people.
Like a hamster wheel.
Okay.
But the wheel just keeps getting heavier and heavier. I know from my own time in the tech scene, we sometimes complain about crunch time,
Right.
but involution is different.
And it's completely different.
It's like, imagine you're a programmer. You finish your code by 5 p.m. It's good work. But your boss is still at their desk, so you stay.
Right. You can't leave.
Your coworker notices you staying, so they stay. Soon, the entire floor is sitting there until midnight, just clicking their mice to look busy.
Performing work.
Yeah. Nobody's actually producing anything of value. The company isn't making more money, but you're all collectively burning out just to not be the first one to leave.
That is the perfect micro example of a macro crisis. Now, let me just flip through my notes here and look at the actual numbers to see the fallout, because the data is wild.
Lay it on us.
If we pull the data from March 2026, the official youth unemployment rate for those aged 16 to 24 hits 16.9%.
Okay, wait, real quick. Mandatory timeout for the Sip&Talkers. Just a reminder, we are not investment advisors.
Oh, definitely not.
These macroeconomic labor stats are purely for objective societal analysis. We are breaking down this sociological machinery here. We are not telling you what to do with your stock portfolio.
Right, absolutely. We are strictly analyzing the human cost and the structural economic shifts. No financial advice here.
Just wanted to get that out of the way. So, 16.9% youth unemployment.
Yes, but we have to remember that is the heavily filtered, optimized version of the data. It excludes students and uses very generous definitions of what it means to be employed.
Ah, the beautified statistics, essentially.
Exactly what the researchers call it. If you factor in what the state terms slow employment.
Which is just a very polite way of saying someone moved back in with their parents because the job market is dead.
Exactly. You add that, and the lying flat crowds and independent university professors estimate the real youth unemployment number is closer to 40%.
30%. That is staggering.
And for the ones who do have jobs, the average worker is putting in 2,548 hours a year. That is the highest globally. To put that in perspective, the average worker in Germany clocks roughly 5 hours a day.
Man. And if we look at those structural shifts from an American tech perspective, the contrast is just wild.
It really is.
Like, take Trump's strategy for bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. It relies incredibly heavily on automation, AI, and advanced robotics. Like the GPS Act, the semiconductor legislation. It's a massive driver of a high-efficiency, capital-intensive tech ecosystem.
Right. It's about leveraging technology to do the heavy lifting.
Exactly. The American strategy right now is essentially trying to innovate out of the grind. But the system described in these sources, it still heavily relies on burning through cheap labor. It's treating young, highly educated people as disposable human batteries.
That human battery metaphor is prevalent in the literature for a really good reason. The economic miracle of the past 30 years over there was built on a massive demographic dividend, cheap, abundant labor.
But now those batteries are totally drained.
Completely drained. You have high schoolers studying from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. to pass exams, graduating from top universities, getting into tech companies, and then competing to see who can sleep the least under their desks.
It's a meat grinder.
It is. And it has birthed this fascinating, heartbreaking new demographic that sociologists are calling the 45-degree life.
Oh, I saw that term in our notes, the 45-degree angle. I'm trying to visualize this. Break that down for me.
So think of it spatially. 0 degrees is lying completely flat. It's giving up entirely, maybe moving to a cheap rural town and living off minimal money doing odd jobs.
Okay, so that's 0 degrees.
Right. And 90 degrees is standing straight up, rolling up your sleeves, and violently competing in the involution rat race.
So where does the 45-degree come in?
The 45-degree life are the millions of people stuck right in the middle. They are too exhausted and disillusioned to compete at 90 degrees. They know the game is rigged.
But they can't afford to drop out to 0.
Exactly. Or maybe the societal guilt is just too heavy, so they are frozen at a 45-degree angle of pure, paralyzing anxiety.
Wow. So they aren't dropping out. But they aren't fighting to the top either. They're doing the absolute bare minimum to avoid starving, but they've entirely given up on the concept of thriving.
Yep. It's extreme gig work, minimal consumption, no dating, definitely no buying property.
And from a historical perspective, we've seen philosophical rejections of toxic systems before. Think about the ancient Greek cynics, like Diogenes, who famously lived in a barrel and told Alexander the Great to stop blocking his sunlight. Or ancient Chinese poets retreating to the bamboo forest to drink wine. But those were small, niche philosophical movements. This sounds like a massive demographic shift.
And for a highly centralized system, it is a catastrophic threat. It's not just an economic issue, Joe. It transforms into a political crisis.
Right, because if the youth stop buying houses, stop taking out loans, and stop having kids, they're essentially withdrawing their capital from the state's future.
Exactly. The regime relies on these human batteries for tax revenue, for cheap production, for social stability. When the batteries refuse to charge, the entire narrative of national rejuvenation starts to fracture.
Which raises a really dark question for me. What happens to a person's brain when they're stuck at that 45-degree angle for years?
It's not pretty.
I mean, when you have a college degree, you work 12 hours a day, and you still can't afford a basic apartment. Your psychology has to warp, right?
It completely fractures. The sociological data indicates that society essentially splits into 2 main coping mechanisms, the moderates and the radicals.
Okay, let's break those down.
So the moderates practice extreme realism. They see the system clearly. Privately, they might mock the 996 culture and read books about lying flat, but publicly, they keep their heads down.
Basically, they know it's raining, so they buy an umbrella and wait it out. Just survive, protect their families, and fly under the radar.
That's a great way to put it. But then you have the radicals, and this is where the societal psychology gets incredibly dangerous.
This is the equality of misery stuff.
Yes. These are individuals who've been totally crushed by involution. They have zero hope for upward mobility. But instead of quietly opting out, they embrace extreme militant nationalism as an emotional crutch.
This is the crab mentality that papers talk about. Let me try an analogy here.
Go for it.
Imagine you just got screamed at by your boss for 12 hours straight. You were passed over for a promotion, you're broke, you're totally defeated.
Sounds awful.
Right. You go home, you look over your backyard fence, and you see your neighbor having this amazing, relaxed barbecue with their friends. Now, a healthy reaction is wanting to join them or hoping you can have a barbecue yourself one day.
Sure, aspiration.
But the radical reaction, you call the cops on them on a noise complaint just to ruin their night. It's a demand for equal suffering.
That captures it perfectly. It is the demand for the equality of misery. And it loops us right back to that North Korean propaganda about South Korea eating tree bark.
Oh, right. The savior delusion.
Yes. When these radical factions look outward at democratic, free societies like Taiwan, for instance, which has universal healthcare, high wages, and civil liberties, they experience severe cognitive dissonance.
Wait, cognitive dissonance because seeing someone else succeed breaks their internal narrative.
Yes. Their brains literally cannot process that a better, freer life is actually possible. Because if a freer life is possible just across the water, then their own suffering is meaningless.
Oh, man. It means they aren't noble martyrs of a great system. It means they are just being exploited.
Exactly. That is a devastating realization.
So to protect their own fragile ego, to prevent a complete mental breakdown, they have to tear down the reality of the free society in their own minds.
It's a well-documented phenomenon called collective narcissism. They project their own misery outward. They label freedom as chaos. They label wealth as decadence.
This is totally twisted.
They genuinely convince themselves that dragging other freer people into their authoritarian 996 lifestyle is a form of saving them.
Wow.
It is the ultimate psychological defense mechanism. It allows them to say, I am not a victim of exploitation, I am a soldier of order, and those free people are just messy and lost.
That is incredibly heavy. It's like they're demanding that everyone else's sky be painted gray just because they aren't allowed to see the sun.
That's a really poetic way to put it.
But I have to ask, how does an entire society get to a point where they refuse to believe their own eyes? How does that level of delusion become mainstream?
You're hitting on the core of the issue here. The research defines this as trust bankruptcy.
Trust bankruptcy.
Yes. Decades of living under manipulated statistics, filtered news, and beautified data take a massive psychological toll. Think about the economic numbers we discussed.
Right.
When the state media constantly claims the economy is booming and breaking records, but literally everyone you know is getting laid off, taking pay cuts, or moving back in with their parents, something inside the collective psyche snaps.
I was reading this section of the sources and I kept thinking about the movie The Truman Show.
Oh, great movie.
Imagine growing up your entire life in that giant television dome. And one day, you sail a boat to the edge of the ocean, and the bow of the boat literally hits a wall. You touch it, and you discover the sky is just painted plaster.
Right, the big reveal.
Now, the healthy response is to find the exit door and look for the real sky. But with trust bankruptcy, it's like you hit the wall, turn the boat around, sit down, and conclude that all skies, everywhere in the universe, must be fake plaster.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. It's a trauma response. Because these citizens have been lied to so consistently by their own systemic narratives, they become hyper-cynical.
They just assume everything is a lie.
Exactly. They assume that all global media is state-controlled propaganda. They assume all democratic elections everywhere are just scripted theater run by a deep state.
Wow.
If international media reports on human rights abuses, they just hand-wave it away as Western propaganda. And the saddest part is they mistake this extreme blanket cynicism for independent thinking.
Wait, so let me get this straight. By trying to be these independent thinkers and actively distrusting their own domestic media, they actually trap themselves even worse.
100%. Because if you believe the old saying that all crows are equally black,
meaning every government is equally corrupt and objective truth simply doesn't exist anywhere in the world,
then the authoritarian regime actually wins.
I see the logic. Because if everything is a lie anyway, you might as well stick with the lie that promises order and keeps the trains running on time. Why fight for a messy truth if you think truth is a myth?
Exactly. A stable, predictable lie becomes vastly preferable to the chaotic pursuit of truth. If they admit that real freedom exists elsewhere, they have to face the agonizing reality of their own cages.
And the mental load of that is just too high.
Too high. So the system's ultimate victory isn't convincing the people that the system itself is perfect. The ultimate victory is convincing the people that the rest of the world is just as corrupt, fake, and miserable as they are.
That just completely reframes the hostility you see online. When you see armies of internet trolls defending these regimes, it's not a flex of strength. It's an incredible vulnerability.
It's a tragic psychological trap. And this brings us to a really important point we want to land on today. We are analyzing the sociological machinery of these systems. This is not about mocking or hating any country's people.
Oh, not at all. If anything, reading these sources builds a ton of empathy.
Completely.
When we see that extreme toxic anger flaring up online, the calls to drag others down, the demands for the equality of misery, we have to recognize it for what it truly is.
A cry for help.
It's a disguised cry for help from exhausted individuals who have been pushed to the absolute brink of mental collapse by a zero-sum system. It's the sound of a human battery sparking out because it has nothing left to give.
Which is why the core thesis of the research and our takeaway today is that true independent thinking is the most vital tool we have as human beings.
Yeah.
Independent thinking isn't just blanket cynicism. It's not just rejecting everything you're told. It is having the courage to verify facts, to look at the flow of capital, to look at the reality of labor conditions, and to tolerate nuance.
Right. A chaotic, messy freedom where people argue and protest and vote and make mistakes is infinitely better than a perfectly organized, quiet lie.
The messiness is where the life is.
It really is. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the sources, I want to share a heartfelt vision. We genuinely hope that one day the people living under these high-pressure, closed systems won't have to tear others down just to find a shred of psychological peace.
Yeah. We hope they won't have to choose between burning out at 90 degrees or completely giving up at 0 degrees.
We hope they stop being treated as just advanced batteries for a ruthless economic machine.
And we really hope they finally secure the basic, fundamental human dignity to freely, directly elect the leaders who represent their true, authentic voices.
Because no one inherently wants to lie flat. People want to build, they want to create, they want to live. But they need a system that rewards them, not one that consumes them.
Beautifully said. And to all you Sip and Talkers out there, thank you so much for joining us on this journey today. Don't forget to subscribe to Sip and Talk wherever you get your audio.
And while you're at it, definitely head over and check out our good buddy Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life. He just dropped some brand new travel vlogs that are absolutely incredible.
Oh, they're so good.
They're the perfect uplifting palate cleanser after today's heavy topics.
Yes, Mickey's travel videos are amazing. Definitely check his channel out. But before we go, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to ponder this week.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this time exploring the illusions systems create to survive. So ask yourself, if a system's entire survival depends on convincing its people that the rest of the world is a burning building, what happens on the day those people finally realize they're the only ones holding the matches?
Peace.